feel like I'm getting hammered.
Last season, Caitlin Clark took her fair share of cheap shots, hard fouls, and defenders who thought physical play could slow her down. But that era? Officially over. The Indiana Fever aren't just building around Clark, they're protecting her. They've loaded up their roster with not one, not two, but 3 enforcers who won't stand for any of that nonsense. The message is clear. If you come for Caitlin, you're going to have to go through them first.
So the Indiana Fever have got their enforcer. They have got their enforcer for Caitlin Clark. And I'm not gonna lie, like, when it comes to Caitlin Clark and their enforcer, last year everyone was talking about them needing an enforcer.
Enter Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, and Dewana Bonner. 3 battle-tested vets who bring toughness, attitude, and a no-nonsense approach to the court. They're not just skilled. They're enforcers who know how to set the tone and throw their weight around. So if defenders thought they could keep hammering Clark with cheap shots and hard fouls, they're about to get a harsh reality check. The message is crystal clear. Mess with Caitlin and you're answering to them. Next Vios. This move isn't just about adding talent, it's about making a statement. The Fever aren't here just to compete, they're here to take over. With these new additions, they've built a squad that's fast, physical, and most importantly, ready to protect their star. Clark's bullies? Consider them officially on notice. So how will these 3 game changers transform the Fever into one of the most dangerous teams in the WNBA? Let's break it down.
The closest thing they had was Erica Wheeler. That was the closest thing they had for someone to defend Caitlin Clark was Erica freaking Wheeler. Maybe Tammy, but Caitlin Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early and they needed their Charles Oakley.
Imagine this. Caitlin Clark, the most electrifying rookie the WNBA has seen in years, steps onto the court for her debut season. The crowd is buzzing, fans are on the edge of their seats, and the stage is set for something special. But instead of a smooth welcome to the league, she's met with hard fouls, relentless contact, and physical play that borders on outright targeting. What was really going on here?
Sometimes you need one of those players on your team. You need one of those enforcers. Every good player, by the way. Every good player, every good team that is a super duper star. Most of the time have enforcer type player.
Let's break it down. This wasn't just your typical rookie treatment. Clark faced a level of aggression that went beyond competition. Cheap shots, body checks, and unnecessary fouls became a regular part of her game. At times, it felt less like basketball and more like she was stepping into a wrestling ring. And here's where it gets shocking. Clark wasn't just adapting to physical play, she was targeted. The numbers don't lie. A staggering 177% of all flagrant fouls in the WNBA last season were committed against her. That's not just tough defense. That's a clear message, and players were making sure she felt it.
That's all I see. They try so long to get respect for women's basketball, and then they treat it like a junior high school girl's locker room. Junior high school girl antics on the court.
And at the center of it all, the Chicago Sky. A staggering 80% of those flagrant fouls against Clark came from just one team. Coincidence? Not a chance. This wasn't just defense, it was a targeted effort. But why? Was it an attempt to intimidate her? Pure frustration? Or an old-school strategy to wear down a rising star? Whatever the motive, one thing was undeniable. Clark wasn't. Just another rookie. She was a threat, and some players were determined to make her feel it.
Now, what little girl wants to grow up and play in a league where you're targeted like that? How do you sit here and profess and demand that everyone take women's sports seriously when you can't even take it seriously enough to not act like a junior high queen on the court? It's stupid. That's so dumb. It looks like a soap opera.
It's one of the worst incidents. Angel Reese herself was at the center of it. Picture this. Clark drives into the lane, eyes locked on the basket, when suddenly, bam, Reese sends her crashing to the floor. The arena falls silent. Fans hold their breath. Would she get up? The hit was so brutal that even the commentators started wondering, had it gone too far? But Clark? She's built different. She shook it off, got back on her feet, and kept playing like it was just another day at the office.
Clark! Hammer!
That's what sets Clark apart, her composure under pressure. While everyone else debated whether the hits had gone too far, she stayed locked in. Even after taking a blatant cheap shot from Chennedy Carter, Clark's response was simple. That's just not a basketball play. But you've got to play through it. No complaints, no retaliation. Just the kind of mental toughness that separates great players from legends.
We went up really strong a lot of times and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whip.
But while Clark proved she could handle the hits, Indiana's front office knew she shouldn't have to do it alone. So, they took action. Major action. By bringing in some tough, battle-tested enforcers, the Fever have made one thing crystal clear. Cheap shots and dirty plays won't fly anymore. So who are these new reinforcements? And how will they reshape the entire identity of the Indiana Fever? Let's break it down.
And Clark. I mean, that's clearly a foul, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary? Chennedy Carter.
Natasha Howard isn't just a new addition to the Indiana Fever. She's the muscle this team has been missing. From the moment she walked into that locker room, the message was loud and clear. Caitlin. Clark won't be an easy target anymore. For those unfamiliar, Howard is a 3-time WNBA champion, a former Defensive Player of the Year, and a fierce competitor who brings a whole new level of toughness. She's not here for the spotlight. She's here to make sure no one gets away with roughing up Clark ever again.
And Clark.
The signing of Natasha Howard represents a massive step forward for the Indiana Fever and their quest for a championship. In Howard, the Fever gain a 3-time WNBA champion, a Defensive Player of the Year, an All-Star, and a veteran with more than 300 games played.
Last season, defenders came at Clark with relentless physicality, thinking they could rough her up without consequence. But this year, they'll have to think twice. Natasha Howard's presence alone shifts the balance of power. Just standing next to Clark, she demands respect. But Howard isn't just an enforcer. She's a game changer on both ends of the floor. Last season, she put up 17.6 points, 6.7 rebounds, and nearly 3 assists per game. Elite-level production. And the best part? She can stretch the floor.
But all of that, and we haven't yet touched upon what Howard does best: defend. Howard was named Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 and has finished in the top 10 of the Defensive Player of the Year voting 3 times in her career. Howard has averaged at least 1 block and 1 steal per game in each of her last 7 seasons. And that versatility is really what makes her a weapon on defense.
With Howard's ability to knock down shots from beyond the arc, she's going to open up even more space for Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston to go to work.
Last season, with a minimum of 25 games played, Natasha Howard was one of just 13 players to average 18 points per game. She was one of 16 players to average 7 rebounds per game. And the list of players to average both 18 and 7 last year: short and elite. Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Brittany Griner, and yes, Natasha Howard.
Howard's real impact? Defense. She's not just a solid defender, she's a game wrecker. The 2019 Defensive Player of the Year built her reputation on shutting down elite scorers, protecting the paint, and setting a physical tone that forces opponents to think twice before attacking. Her length, strength, and relentless energy make her a nightmare for anyone looking to score. And when it comes to protecting her teammates, she's the type of player who won't hesitate to step in and send a message. But her biggest weapon? Championship experience. The Fever are young, full of potential, and hungry for success. But deep. Playoff runs require more than talent. They demand poise, leadership, and a winning mindset. With over 50 postseason games under her belt, Howard knows exactly what it takes to survive and thrive when the pressure is at its peak. Now, she's bringing that edge straight to Indiana.
But that wingspan and 6'2" height allows her to be disruptive defensively around the rim on opposing bigs too. In fact, Howard will enter the 2025 season 25th all-time in blocks in WNBA history.
Howard's energy matches the Fever's rising momentum. In her own words, "I'm excited to return to Indiana and bring my experience and toughness to the team. I want to help Caitlin and the Fever compete at the highest level." And that's exactly what she plans to do. This move isn't just about protecting Clark, it's about unlocking her full potential. Howard has been there, done that, and now she's here to show Indiana what it takes to win it all. With her in the mix, the Fever aren't just pushing back, they're taking over.
Caitlin Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early, and they needed their Charles Oakley. You've got that in Sophie Cunningham.
Sophie Cunningham is bringing her fire to Indiana, and the WNBA just got a whole lot more intense. If Caitlin Clark needed a fearless teammate who can drain threes and stand up to the bullies, she just found her. This offseason, the Fever weren't just hunting for talent, they were searching for grit. And in Cunningham, they landed a player who brings both in abundance.
There are so many videos of Sophie Cunningham just starting brawls. Sophie Cunningham, in general, is just wild. Wild is the best word I can use to describe Sophie Cunningham. And it's carnage. It's carnage a lot of time when Sophie Cunningham gets involved with anything. The amount of fights that Sophie Cunningham has been involved in is mental.
Some might be wondering, Sophie Cunningham? Wasn't she supposed to be recruiting Caitlin Clark to Phoenix? Well, turns out Clark had other plans. Instead of heading west, she made sure Cunningham joined her squad in Indiana. This wasn't just another off-season signing. It was a statement. The Fever needed energy, attitude, and relentless toughness.
She hits a three, Maisha Hines-Allen fouls her, and then tries to step over, and then Sophie Cunningham grabs her leg. Nobody's going near Maisha Hines-Allen, but no, Sophie Cunningham will start the fight. The refs are trying to break it up. None of the Mercury players are going to go near Maisha Hines-Allen. They're scared. She's scared of bejesus out of them. Maisha Hines-Allen is one of the toughest players in this league. Sophie Cunningham going head to head straight with her.
And with Cunningham, they got all of that and more. Let's talk about why Cunningham is exactly what the Fever needed.
Sophie Cunningham, there are so many things where it's like, part of it her fault, part of it not her fault, but she will not back down. She will not back down under any circumstances from anything. And that is what the Indiana Fever need. If somebody hits Caitlin Clark, if somebody does what Victoria Vivians did to Caitlin Clark, it's not going to be Caitlin Clark that's getting involved to be teed up. Sophie Cunningham's in there. You take the technical foul. You take it.
First, her shooting. She's not just a physical player, she's a legit threat from deep. Last season, she drilled 37.8% of her threes, and with Clark creating open looks, that percentage could climb even higher. Picture this. Defenses are already stretched trying to contain Clark and Mitchell, and then there's Cunningham waiting beyond the arc, ready to bury the open shot. Defenders are going to have nightmares.